But I am on my own with this call today, so I hope that is all right with you. I see everyone checking in. I see Hong Kong, San Francisco, so it is so good to have you all here. We have a fantastic discussion in store. As you may know, this is our Q&A session. It's a very casual discussion, and with that in mind, depending on time, I'd love to open the floor for a couple of questions to be answered, at the end of the call. So as you are listening to the answers of the pre-prepared questions, feel free to send your questions in the chat or even on the Q&A session because that really helps me identify which questions have been asked. But without further ado, let's get started and I will share my screen. All right. So as mentioned, Q&A session. I asked y'all to start sending in some of your questions at the first session, session 1, so that I can begin to work on my answers and collaborate with HQ to get proper answers to each of these questions. So I have selected a couple of questions to feature in our discussion today. Some are directly from those emails, some are also from our DM questions, and then I also selected a few questions that I just happened to see in the chat on previous sessions. So hopefully these are questions that perhaps you are wondering yourself or that individuals have asked you and you weren't too sure how to respond. Ultimately, I hope this clarifies some of the, ideas we previously discussed or some unclarity in our products as well. So let's get started. And our first question is a good one. It's one I get asked quite often in our DMs, in my emails. I've been getting this question since, we started in the US, and it's on glycols. Why do we use them? Are they safe? There's a lot of misinformation on the use of glycols. Some glycols are used as antifreeze and they're identified as food safe in that category. But then we start thinking about antifreeze and how, that kind of liquid that you use in cars is definitely not something that you want to be consuming or applying topically. And it becomes this confusion of what these ingredients actually are. And so many glycols have basic hydrating properties. They're going to attract water to the skin as humectants. So another example of a humectant is like hyaluronic acid. They're structures that not only attract that atmospheric water to the skin, but they also organize water throughout the dermal layers. Some glycols also are very powerful in formulation as they enhance absorption of formulas, and they can even help enhance the preservation rather of a formula, which of course is so important. You must have a preserved formula so that it's free from any bacterial contamination or mold growth as well. Now, there are some websites that state propylene glycol as one of the glycols is really industrial antifreeze and that it's a strong skin sensitizer. Others further point out the MSDS or Material Safety Data Sheet on propylene glycol warns users to avoid skin contact. So, as ominous as that sounds, it's actually far from the reality of how propylene glycol is specifically used in skincare formulations. So, there's a kind of an overarching regulatory body called the Cosmetic Ingredient Review Board. They really ultimately determine the safety and applicability of ingredients within skincare. And so it's otherwise known as the CIR. And the CIR, amongst other groups, very much in-depth analyzed glycols and specifically propylene glycol in this concept of toxicology and skin sensitization. And it was found that it does not pose any sensitivity or major health risk to consumers when you utilize a propylene glycol that is skin safe or is otherwise created for the use in formulas for your topical products. They can be in concentration at upwards of 73% in formula with no potential for skin sensitization or contact sensitization. So realistically, it's how you are sourcing these glycols, where they're coming from. Furthermore, some of these glycols, their initial starting material is petrolatum or petroleum. And so many think that it's, the kind of petroleum, again, that is used in more industrial settings. But even at the raw material source of this raw material, we are using something that is cosmetic grade, that is completely applicable for application to humans. And it's not the same as commercial petroleum and ultimately commercial propylene glycol. It is actually inert, and that means it is chemically inactive. And so there's no reason to avoid it in your skincare because it has such profound benefits in hydration, absorption potential, and preservative boosting as well. All right. So our next question comes from Miss Andrea Dawn. She asks which of our products have collagen? And this is a fantastic question because some of the products have collagen that you might not know, and that's mainly the dermatology cream. So of course, the Collagen 100 Melting Sheet Mask is going to have that marine-derived collagen. The Beauty Collagen EX Ampule also has marine-derived collagen. The 100 Melting Mask is specifically New Zealand hoki fish collagen. The Beauty Collagen is from Nile tilapia, and the dermatology cream has specifically a complex derived from bovine collagen. As such, these three products are not vegan nor vegetarian. And so, in the consideration of otherwise vegetarian products, you can always email Ritual at Remon, and I can list out what products are either vegan or vegetarian outside of the Baudelaire products, which are, of course, V labeled. So they are certified vegan. That was a quick one. All right. Next question also comes from Miss Andrea, and it's a great question. Another one I get asked so often. And what do you recommend for teenage acne? And so I wanted to include this question because it's kind of a double whammy in that my answer is somewhat indirect because of the considerations of Remon. So as many of you may already know, we are a cosmetic grade or cosmeceutical grade brand. In the eyes of the FDA, you either have a cosmetic, which is meant to beautify the skin without altering structure or function, and then you have a drug, which makes specific claims towards altering the structure or function of the skin. So a drug, of course, is going to be mostly pertaining to the ingredients within them. So if you're using minoxidil in a formula that increases hair growth, that is an OTC drug product. Even SPF, those filters are all creating an OTC product for your sunscreen versus your moisturizers, your shampoos, those basic cosmetics are otherwise unregulated in that category. But more recently, in more recent years, rather, a hybrid term has come, which is the cosmeceutical grade area. This is in which you have products that, yes, are cosmetic grade on the surface. You know, you have your dermatology cream or your snow enzyme cleanser, but they go above and beyond in their performance, above and beyond those traditional performances of cosmetic products. They have purposely selected ingredients to produce profound results to the skin. All of that to say, because we are ultimately cosmetic grade or cosmeceutical grade, we cannot directly recommend products for the treatment or abatement of a specific dermatosis. And for example, acne is in consideration, but also eczema or psoriasis, rosacea as well. And I believe I mentioned this during session 3 on skin physiology, is yes, there are so many different skin concerns, but there are only some at which we can directly recommend products for. Now, furthermore, in the fact that this is a double whammy is because of the identification of teenage acne. So all Remont products were created for and tested on 18 plus skin. That is by no means to say that these products won't work for those under the age of 18, but it is up to the individual's discretion or the discretion of a parent. I will say that, the skin really matures and becomes that of adult skin around 12 to 13 years of age. But anything younger than that, you don't want to influence the skin as it is becoming structurally mature. Beyond that, as we have that sweet sensitive spot of 12 to 16, 17, you of course have a variety of hormonal influences, which are difficult to separate from your topical product application. So in all of these considerations, I still can make a recommendation on the basis, or rather general basis, of sensitive and easily inflamed skin, which is often what acne-prone skin categorizes into. And in that instance, I almost always recommend what is otherwise our elimination routine. So this involves essentially the essential Remon ritual, but really focusing on the booster, the serum, and the dermatology cream. I even, start with just those products and then introduce our cleansers because we want to make sure that at least the core dermatology products work with this individual skin. Furthermore, those 3 products have that German derma testing, which is that more stringent safety testing for applicability to sensitive skin types. So to practice the elimination routine for sensitive, easily inflamed, or perhaps acne prone skin, What you'll want to do is simply rinse with lukewarm water in the morning and do not, or rather, introduce a cleanser. If you do have more oily skin and you have to get a cleanser in, that's absolutely fine. But beyond that, you then do your Boo Boo and you finish with a light layer of the dermatology cream. At night, you can double cleanse with our cleansing oil and then a water-based cleanser outside of Rimmon. And there are a variety of different options there. You can use CeraVe, Cetaphil, La Roche-Posay. I essentially look for a water-based cleanser that doesn't have many ingredients in it so that it doesn't confound the ultimate results of your Rimmon routine. There, you then do Boo Boo again and finish with a dermatology cream. If the skin fares well with these products for at least 4 weeks or one full skin cell cycle, we can then introduce the Calming Balance Gel and then also the Snow Enzyme Cleanser. And that's just a very delicate way to really adjust the skin to these new products and to see that they are still working well without aggravating any specific dermatoses. All right. So our next question then is actually on the side of our lightening supplements, and is what is the benefit of using Deep Talk over other psyllium husk supplements? And so as I may have mentioned during our lightening discussion, there are other psyllium husk supplements on the market with things like Consul or Metamucil. It's a powder, you add it to water, it becomes gelatinous, and you drink that gelatinous mix. Ultimately, the difference, of course, is in the structure of the psyllium husk. It's in that compact pellet form. The natural gelatinization process that occurs with this dietary soluble fiber doesn't occur until these pellets have reached your intestines, versus with many other different brands and products, you're going to have that solubilization immediately when you introduce the husk powder into water. Beyond that, we have so much more in formulation other than the psyllium husk, although we do really prioritize that in discussion. We have aloe vera, there's also ginger, zinc, of course, glucomannan, which is another water-soluble dietary fiber, schisandra root for liver support, and beyond that, multiple other natural plant extracts really to support your gut health in its entirety. So not only is Deep Talk's delivery a little bit different in regards to other offerings on the market, but we have additional ingredients and formulation that really help promote general well-being via your gut microbiome. All right. And as I thought, we were going pretty quickly through these, so I think we would definitely have time for some live Q&A towards the end of the session. But question 5 here comes from an individual named Steph, and they ask, what is the difference between the two-phase oil mist and multi-stick balm? Now, Steph obviously knows that the major difference is one's a balm and one is a mist, but realistically, they are looking at the ingredients, the composition of these formulas, and how do they differ in that degree. So with the multi-stick balm, we have a completely anhydrous formulation, and that's an oil-based formulation. We prioritize giant young pool in in oil form. We also have sea berry water, which is rich in vitamin C and E, and camellia seed oil straight from Jeju Island. The two-phase oil mist also has the sea berry, also has the giant young pool, and also has the camellia. So the ingredients in formulation, on an initial glance, when you're looking at the key ingredients specifically, they're the same. And so it's hard to determine if you should be using one over the other or both. But realistically, it's the administration of these products. With the multi-stick balm, you can really apply it to a localized area. It can be for chapped lips, for areas of dryness on the skin, for the under eyes, or to highlight specific areas such as your cheekbones or even your collarbone. But as it is an anhydrous balm, it's also going to have some butters that create an occlusive property to this formula. Essentially, as you are hydrating and moisturizing with all the ingredients and formula, those thick butters are going to create a film or seal on top of the skin that locks in that hydration. With the two-phase oil mist, of course, in that biphasic nature that you can easily see, you shake it and you mist it, but it's much finer in its delivery of specific ingredients. The oil phase has a variety of different vitamins and formula, which gives it its notable yellow tint, and that's going to be more easily absorbed into the skin. While yes, you'll have somewhat of a layer formed because there is oils in formula, it's not to the degree of the multi-stick balm. So we have not only a more generalized application with the two-phase oil mist, but a lighter application in that. And then of course there are sub-ingredient differences versus the multi-stick balm. It's a more focused application, higher occlusivity, and then own ingredients such as the butter to produce its expected results. All right. Uh, Question 6. So, what is the suggested routine for hyperpigmentation and can it reduce melasma? This is another question I get over and over again, and it is a fantastic question because many individuals do suffer from hyperpigmentation to some degree. Perhaps you have acne scarring, you have exposed yourself to the sun a little bit too much. If there's a hormonal influence, it's one of the greatest signs of aging that many individuals want to address, but even more, or younger rather, individuals may have hyperpigmentation because of those aforementioned exposures. And so the good thing with Remon is that we are prioritizing brightness. That is one of our biggest product desires and goals in the design of all Remon products. So with that in mind, many of our products have ingredients that are intended, or rather intended to address the general issues of hyperpigmentation or of dark spots. In the consideration of melasma specifically, this is a beast in its own right. Many dermatologists do find that the best treatments for this more aggressive form of hyperpigmentation are intense topicals like tretinoin or hydroquinone. And so we invite those individuals that are struggling with melasma to try out our different products and our different formulations, which are, of course, more gentle in nature, but we can not accurately recommend them as direct forms of treatment that they will completely ameliorate this melasma because it is such a deep form of hyperpigmentation. Now, with that consideration aside, all of the products that Chairman On designed really wanted to focus on that youthful glow. If you remember from session 1, I talked about how he had seen the glow of his daughter's cheeks and essentially wanted to help others attain that once again. And so both the Radiance Sun 100 products and the dermatology products have a variety of different ingredients and applications to help address the general concern of hyperpigmentation and of skin tone evenness as well. As many of you hopefully know, our giant young pool is profound in that aspect. It is not only shown in vitro, but in vivo or clinically to significantly reduce hyperpigmentation and also to inhibit melanogenesis or to inhibit further melanin formation so that you can maintain that brightness long term. And that giant young pool is in high concentration in the booster, the serum, and the dermatology cream, but it's also in the Radiance Sun products. It's also in the two-phase oil mist and multi-stick balm. But then we also employ a variety of industry standards like niacinamide and vitamin C. These two are powerful antioxidants that also have brightening capabilities. With the specific focus on the Radiance Sun 100 line, Radiance in its name, we have the Vita complex, which is that 5-vitamin complex, but we also have RK Snowflake and Collagen Near, both of which are looking towards brightening and supporting the structural integrity of the skin. So many different natural extracts and industry standards go into every single product to generally address some form of hyperpigmentation. Now, in that consideration for an individual that does have hyperpigmentation and is trying to consider which line is best for them, I always go back to our discussion last week, which is what is their skin type? If they are sensitive, the answer is immediately that they need to go to the dermatology routine. I mean, of course, they can explore the Radiance Sun 100 products, but ultimately I find the most success with sensitive individuals and the dermatology products. If they don't have sensitive skin and they do have perhaps mature skin, dry skin, even combo or normal skin, I actually may recommend that they try the Radiance Sun or Advanced Remon Ritual first. Oh, there goes my light. Because this has that nanoliposomal technology, and those nanoliposomes really can help bring specific ingredients to the areas of issue within the epidermis. It's not to say that the ingredients are not accurately traveling with the dermatology products, but they are going to address more of a surface level form of hyperpigmentation. So long story short, always consider the skin type of the individual, but realistically for hyperpigmentation, as all of the products address it to some degree, I recommended Radiance Sun 100 line if they don't have sensitive skin and if their skin type otherwise would favor these formulations. All right. So question 7 is, can the snow enzyme and cleansing powder wash be used together? And this was asked by Julie. And this is a fantastic question because she loves how the cleansing powder wash exfoliates her skin, but she does find that it is drying to her skin. Now, this is something I have said for many other products, be it our moisturizers and topicals, but I typically do not recommend the mixing of products. It is ultimately hard to determine how those products in conjunction will affect your skin and if you may potentially actually introduced product instability in this mixing. I know some may have promoted the idea of mixing a variety of different topicals into a bottle and applying all of that to your skin. Would not recommend that, but that's not what we're talking about today. Use of the snow enzyme and cleansing powder wash together, I think, would be a bit redundant in the sense that, yes, they both have their surfactants, they both have the enzymes, but in using them together, it's not necessarily going to increase the cleansing efficacy while also maintaining some of the exfoliation of the cleansing powder wash. If you are finding that the cleansing powder wash is, robustly exfoliating, but a bit too harsh for your skin, it may be better to use the snow enzyme instead of the cleansing powder wash in entirety rather, because the snow enzyme has that papain and bromelain to still exfoliate the skin. Otherwise, you can also reduce the amount of times a week you're introducing the cleansing powder wash, and you can also dilute how much cleansing powder wash you are using. We typically say a nickel-sized amount into the palm of the hand, couple drops of water, work it into a lather, and massage it to the skin. But you can do much less than that and really kind of spread that thin amount of product onto the surface of the skin. But realistically, in all this consideration, the addition of the snow enzyme to the cleansing powder wash will not necessarily reduce its exfoliation potential, or rather cushion its exfoliation potential. It's more about using much less cleansing powder wash, either in frequency or in product amount in your hand. All right, so we have just a few more questions, just three more questions. And our question number 8 is another fantastic one I get asked quite often, and it is purging possible with the skincare products? Now, when we initially started Remon in North America, we were kind of talking about purging and, how an individual initially experiences the products. And we landed on a more accurate term, which is skin training. Skin training is the process by which you introduce products to the skin and allow it time to acclimate and eventually show the benefits of those products really in how they're performing in your skin. And during that skin training period, you might have an adjustment period in which you do see, perhaps a few more breakouts, or you perhaps have, some unsavory skin appearance, but then ultimately that goes away because the products begin to become harmonious with the skin. Now, in that consideration, purging is a side effect of starting a new skincare product or routine in which it increases skin cell turnover. This is often seen with, acids or retinoids, I would say most common. And because of this, the new cells and deeper skin layers come up much faster, which may bring up pre-existing blockages such as comedones, pimples, or even pustules. Now, because Remon products are gentler in nature, we don't employ such harsh acids or retinoids in formulation. Purging is not necessarily possible in the traditional sense. Really, we can focus on the skin training ideal, where if you're getting a couple of breakouts, but your skin is otherwise comfortable and luminous, keep going. See how your skin fares for at least a full skin cell cycle. But if you're really experiencing unsavory or uncomfortable moments for your skin, this is a moment in which we need to readdress. Perhaps you're using the product incorrectly, you're using the wrong product for your skin type, or there is simply a product that your skin does not favor within an entire routine. And in that instance, I always recommend that elimination routine I had mentioned for question 2. Boo Say Boo, the dermatology cream, both morning and night, with just rinsing with lukewarm water in the morning and double cleansing at night. This really allows us to determine if the dermatology products are working for your skin, you are using the right routine, and then ultimately we can then determine if it was a specific product, if it was the calming balance gel or the two-phase oil mist that was giving you some reaction, or if it's perhaps you're using the wrong routine entirely and that you need to go the Radiant Sun routine because even the dermatology products are not working with your skin. So long story short, I encourage the transition of purging to more an idea of skin training, but never push through something that is giving you great discomfort in your skin. There's always a solution. There's always a way in which we can explore further a new routine for you to try. And that ultimately is the beauty behind Remon, is that our products are designed to be experimented with, to mix and match different products to find the Remon ritual that's right for you. And if you are someone who, is overwhelmed with the idea of doing an elimination routine, or I already listed it off and you already forgot what it was, feel free to email the ritual at Remon email and we will go through it together. All right. So question 9 is, are Remon products pregnancy safe? Another fantastic question I get almost on the daily. And so with Remon products, we of course purposely avoid any toxic ingredients or anything that has been deemed an endocrine disruptor. But with that in mind, pregnant people do have unique skin environments, largely due to their hormonal influences. In consideration, in my personal analysis of ingredients deemed unsafe or to be avoided for pregnant individuals, we have things like retinoids, formaldehyde or formaldehyde donors, parabens, hydroquinone, AHAs and BHAs, and some chemical sunscreen filters. These traditionally are recommended to be avoided by breastfeeding or pregnant individuals. With that in consideration, I would thusly say to avoid the Bodolab shampoo, conditioner, and body wash, as these all have salicylic acid at a very low concentration, but salicylic acid is considered within that AHA and BHA category. And then we also have our moisture layer sunscreen, which does employ chemical filters. Beyond that, there are no other ingredient of concern within the Remon products. But I always recommend consulting with a practicing medical professional for confidence in use because, of course, I am one person that in my analysis really felt strongly about the safety of our products, but I always ultimately want the comfort and safety of that individual. So always feel free to connect with a specific or rather a specific practicing medical professional. Happy to provide an entire ingredient list of all of our product offerings if that would be easy for them to analyze as well. And last but not least, can Remon products be used in conjunction with other skincare lines? And this also captures a question I get asked quite frequently is, can my, you know, prospect or mother still use their vitamin C serum or their retinol? As you may know, all the Remon products were specifically designed to be working in a closed system. They were designed to be synergistic and complementary to one another. If we introduce an outside brand or outside product, it is hard to predict how those products will interact on the skin and ultimately how they will influence the skin health. That is not to say that you'll have, any difficulty in that marriage or in that combination, but that is ultimately up for you to explore at your discretion. Now, I always do understand that there are specific people who perhaps might be excited about one or two products within Remon, but are absolutely married to a different other product or their cleanser that they currently use. That's entirely fine. If there's a way in which you can encourage an individual to try Remon, but to otherwise still use their other products, that's entirely fine. That's up to, of course, their discretion. But realistically, there's a way in which you can combine outside brands and Remon without major concern. It's just ultimately how they understand that these products cannot be predicted in how they will react. So that was a roundabout way of saying that, long story short, we do recommend that you use the Remon products as a closed system by themselves. But if you are married to a product or only using one Remon product, you can explore it at your own discretion with the understanding that you cannot ultimately determine how the skin will benefit from this combination. All right. And so, yes, I remember I promised we're going to do some Q&As, but while I'm on the slide deck, I want to mention that next week is our final session of the Fall Product University, and we are uniting all of the topics from the last 7 weeks, of course, minus today, on the concept of the Remon ritual. Why do we promote that skincare can always be self-care and should always be self-care every single day? So next week, we also have a final exam. Zero pressure final exam. You're not gonna, suddenly lose your Remon membership or anything like that if you don't pass, but there are some prizes. So I do recommend kind of looking at your outlines, perhaps watching any of the recordings. We have recordings of the previous Park University on the Drive, but it's supposed to be lighthearted and fun, so don't feel pressure on that. All right. So I have stopped sharing. And for those that perhaps had your question answered or you don't need to stick around, it's late for you, feel free to leave. You have already got counted for attendance. But let me look at some of the questions. We do have some in the Q&A. And if I don't answer a question, please still send it to me at the ritual at Remon email. We have about 10 minutes, and so I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but let's see. All right, so this one's actually quite connected to our Question on the purging. And so someone who started using Radiant 100 set, will they have continuous outbreaks? Absolutely not. And this is not something we want to expect with these products. And that means that that product line is likely not beneficial to that individual. I traditionally see the Radiance 100 product is not good for sensitive skin types or those with oily or acne prone skin because it's a very high oil load product and system. And it's just adding more oil to their skin. For myself, I have sensitive skin. And of course, I explored the Radiance and products and I found that they weren't beneficial to me. And that's completely okay. I love my dermatology routine. So, ultimately, it is not normal to have consistent breakouts, and I would explore an adjustment or a switch up of their routine. And so, on the topic of product university, someone asked if I missed one class, do I need to repeat all the courses again to receive the certificate? Absolutely not. I know how important your day-to-day is, and that this is just a small moment in time when you otherwise have work, kids, family. And so, just email me the session that you missed, and I will manually add you as attending to my Excel spreadsheet. Now, if you missed more than one, you missed a couple, it might benefit you to sign up again and to get recognition at the next event, but just feel free to email me and we will work something out. Um, all right, so this is a good question that I want to embrace. So why does Remon choose not to use mineral sunscreen ingredients like zinc oxide and titanium dioxide? Fantastic question. Zinc and titanium dioxide are known as the only approved mineral filters for use in the US, and I don't think there's any other form of a mineral filter. But the huge caveat to their use is that they are extremely whitening and they have a fantastic paste-like sensation depending on how they're dispersed in formula. This, of course, limits the usability for users that have perhaps more melanin-rich skin. They're going to get that white cast, and it greatly inhibits the sensory experience of the formulations. Many 100% mineral sunscreens are rather inelegant in how they apply. They don't look great and they don't feel great either, and they tend to feel quite heavy on the skin. Oftentimes, to disperse the zinc and titanium dioxide, which are pigments or powders, you need an oil-based solvent. So at my old company I used to work at, we had our zinc oxide dispersed in, I believe it was like cucumber oil or something like that. And of course, that allowed it for, no clumping and it was completely perfectly homogeneous, but that was still a cucumber oil, so it was quite oily. And so, in our selection of the use of chemical filters, that allows us to create an elegant experience, not only in the sensory perception of the formula, but in the finish of the formula as well, while still having robust SPF protection. Now, there is robust, I love that word. There is profound a discussion in the concept of safety and toxicology of mineral versus chemical sunscreens, but in our selection of the specific chemical sunscreens we've used or chemical sunscreen filters, they are all well within consideration of safe concentrations and even below the maximum percentage of many of these concentrations as deemed safe by the CIR or by other regulatory bodies. So ultimately, we did choose to use chemical filters because of the desired experience of this formulation. All right. This is another good question. So Christina asked, can the products be, I'm sorry, I didn't say the other individuals' names, but can the products be used with beauty devices like in spa facilities? That's a fantastic question. Actually, next week, we'll talk about a way in which you can practice your self-care is by incorporating tools like gua shas. So absolutely, you can use devices. With that in mind, that is, of course, different than if you were to use, an LED lamp or something of more, I don't know the word is technological advancement, with specific things that are within aesthetic treatments. To that degree, it is up to your discretion, which I hate that being my answer, but realistically, we've tested these products in application with a basic form of application, hand to face. So if you want to use external tools, by all means, feel free and empowered to do so. But ultimately, there is no way for us to determine how your skin will experience that. If it will be beneficial, it will be, a moot point, or if it potentially could be detrimental to the skin. So, long story short, go for it if it helps you practice and romanticize your self-care, but obviously just pay attention to how your skin interacts with those products. All right, and then I'll look for a question or two from the chat itself. Great question, Janet. She asked, has the collagen ampule formula changed since the new packaging? It did not. So remember, we had our reformulation, which was last year. I believe it was around this time. It was October, September. We added the selenium and glutathione. We increased the concentration of the giant young pool. Since then, when it got its packaging redesigned, nothing was touched on that ingredient deck specifically. All right, Trina, you asked a great question. Why is the first ingredient of the Bodolab shampoo alcohol? Now, many want to avoid alcohol. They think it to be, well, rather it is a very drying and volatile ingredient. But alcohol is actually used as a stabilizer and homogenizer of conditioning polymers and formula. So specifically, the alcohol in the Bodolab shampoo, or rather the Bodolab water treatment and conditioner, carries our cetrimonium chloride, which is our conditioning polymer. The polymers on their own are thick kind of masses. And so you use that alcohol to break it up so it's evenly dispersed in backs or in batching in the manufacturer, and then ultimately evenly dispersed in your product. The presence of alcohol in formulation is quite often ameliorated and otherwise negligent in the application because there's so many other conditioning products, or rather conditioning ingredients and formula, that better bind to the hair and really kind of take main stage in what is interacting with your hair. And the alcohol, more often than not, volatilizes off, leaving that conditioning polymer on your hair. All right, Alicia asked, do you recommend the oil cleanser for someone that has oily skin or acne-prone skin? That's a great question, and it's always something that's difficult to determine because each individual with oily skin or acne-prone skin is still unique in their experience. I traditionally do recommend trying out the cleansing oil for those with oily or acne-prone skin because the cleansing oil can actually be a fantastic way to pick up some of that excess sebum that has been produced by the skin. Of course, with the science of solubilities, oh my gosh, like dissolves like. So we're going to have those oil-based cleansers removing the oil-based impurities like sebum. So that can actually help reduce some of the sebum present on the skin. For oily prone individuals, that's a further consideration, is that it may help reduce some of the oil that's clogging the pores. But it also is recommended to use the cleansing oil in any instance because it's going to give you the best cleanse in terms of removing those oil-based impurities, be it the sebum or your SPF or the makeup that's built up throughout the day. So for both those individuals, I definitely would recommend trying it out at least just once a day. You don't need to do it twice daily, but some even do it twice daily, and they find that it helps reduce their oil even in the morning as well. Um, All right, so I'm seeing some questions about the snow enzyme specifically, why it's not in Mexico. So with the recently launched areas, we have the UK we just opened up, and of course we have Mexico. We're introducing products slowly. So with Mexico, they're later going to receive the Radianceum line, the lightening products. The UK has, really the bare essentials, but all products will eventually be provided. The snow enzyme is a unique product. As some of you may know, the snow enzyme is actually no longer offered by Remon Korea, but it's so popular with us in the US and within Canada. It is still due for a reformulation. As all the other products got their little makeover, so too will the snow enzyme. And so before that reformulation, that makeover happens, we don't want to bring a product to a market that'll only be there for a month or two because this is coming sooner rather than later. So long story short, the product is just, in innovation right now, in the lab right now, and it will be offered at a later date for those areas outside of the US and Canada. All right, and I will finish with this question from Miss Lynn. Please talk about the dermatology line. It also contains nanoliposomal technology or just the RAD 100? It's a great question. I get it asked often. We did cross it last week when we compared the Radiant Summit dermatology products, but no, the dermatology products do not have any nanoliposomal technology. And there's a variety of considerations as to why we omitted their use in formulation. The basic and most fundamental appreciation of why we did not include the nanoliposomes is that it would greatly hinder the desired sensory experience of that formula. We wanted a very water-rich formulation, quickly absorbing, really hydrating to the skin, and the use of liposomes would weigh down the formula and it also may hinder how it absorbs into the skin because so many of those ingredients are water soluble. So with the use of nanoliposomes in the Radiance 100 line, it perfectly complements those products. It's a very oil-rich line. The ingredients we've selected are oil soluble. Some are, of course, water soluble. They just go onto the inside of the nanoliposomes. But with our dermatology line, we did not need those liposomes because the ingredients absorb with water as a carrier and because the formula is meant to feel much more lightweight. All right. I'm going to go way back up to the beginning and see if there's one or two questions. All right, so Samantha, great question. When are we getting the original body cream and when will it return and will there be options? Fantastic question. So for those of you that perhaps attended Las Vegas Roadmap, we did announce that the body cream is going to be reintroduced in December. I believe we are still on track for that, if not early January. So it's coming very, very soon. And yes, there will be options. We do have people that are fans of the current Relaxing Sunday offering, so we will have both. It's going to be our original, which is now called Morning Garden, and our Relaxing Sunday offering. And so for any of those individuals that either yourself or a customer experienced some adverse reactions, some redness, some breakouts, anything like that, I'm seeing a couple of questions here. Feel free to email me at the ritual@remon.com email. We can go through if they're using a product incorrectly, they're not using the right product for them. I'm by no means trying to purposely avoid those questions here, but we did answer some of that, in regards to the purging and stuff like that in the previous question. So I want to make sure we focus on your unique instance and really find a solution for you specifically as an individual. Right. All right, last question here, and then I am done. I just love answering the questions. You all are so beautifully curious, and it's fantastic to see, how much you understand these products and how much you want to know more. So Rena asked, is there any side effect if we use the gut cleanser daily? So the product is designed for daily consumption with no end period, so to speak. Just once a day for as long as you feel comfortable, you see fit is absolutely applicable. And is how it was designed and how it was tested. Some individuals who were initially involved in the creation and product development of Deep Talk Plus are still using it every single day, and that's 3 or 4 years later. So in consideration of the product itself, it's roughly 3 grams of fiber, so it's not a huge fiber dose that may greatly influence your regularity or gut day to day. It has the psyllium husk and all those other ingredients. The pellets themselves move through the bowel system and are later excreted, of course, with some stuff around it in the form of fecal matter. But long story short, these products, and this is with the beauty collagen as well, were designed to be consumed daily with no concern for limitations or for time restrictions specifically. So, all right, you all, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I loved today's discussion. I felt it was more casual and I just had a really good time seeing all of your inquiries. And thank you for those who sent the emails previously on their questions. I'm going to go through and answer more properly any of those who sent an email with a question that was featured today. But again, if you did not get your question answered, or perhaps I did answer it and you just weren't too clear on what the heck I was saying, please feel free to email me at ritual@remon.com. This inbox is always open for product inquiries, whether it is product university season or not. But without further ado, I have taken up too much of your evening, so I will say good night, and I cannot wait to see you all for the last session next Wednesday. Talk to you then.